Hi, today I'm going to be talking about rent to buy, how it works, whether you're eligible or not, and that kind of information. If you've got any questions, please put them in the comments. So my name's Manda Walker, I'm a mortgage advisor and I am the mortgage coach. And today, as I said, we'll be talking about rent to buy. Now, rent to buy is a scheme that is for tenants in England, and it's when you're saving for a deposit in order to buy your first home. So what would happen is you rent out as a tenant and they offer you a discount of 20%, below 20%, the maximum is 20%. And that 20% you can put into a lifetime ISA or a savings account and save it along the way. And it has to be a property in England, excluding London. There is another scheme called London Living Rent, and I'll talk about that a little later on. So this scheme is you have to be anywhere in England, excluding London, paying rent at a discount of below 20% in order to save for a deposit. Now, who is eligible? Firstly, you have to be either full-time or part-time employed. So you have to have that employment. Secondly, you need to be a first-time buyer. You can't have owned before. Thirdly, you need to be able to save and pay your rent at the same time. So you need to be able to pay the rent, but then have enough money to save as well. So you have to have that level of affordability, which is why obviously they ask for you to be employed. Now, you can also be eligible if after a relationship breakup, you are going back to becoming a home ownership. So you've broken up and with somebody, got divorced, etc., and you want to start out on your own and you're literally starting from scratch, you will also be eligible. So that's the one exemption to the first time buyer rule. The landlord who will be the one obviously taking the rent, will be able to do income checks on you and credit history if they decide that you're eligible. So just be aware of that. Right, how does the scheme work? You apply to rent a property in the scheme. I'll show you a link and there you can have a look anywhere over England, what different areas you want to look for. There are different agencies that cover different locations, and then you decide where you would like to live. You apply there, and as long as they've got a property that's under the scheme and you're eligible, then you can apply for that. And obviously, depending on priority allocation, you could get allocated that property. And that's how it starts. And then obviously every month you pay the rent, it's discounted and you save the difference. Now, the tenancy is normally about 2 years because they figure, landlords figure that after 2 years you should have saved enough deposit in order to, put the deposit down to buy the property. When you're actually buying the property, it is just a standard mortgage, and that mortgage would be, if you can save up your 5%, 10%, so it is a standard mortgage. Now, the next thing is when you're buying your property, if you're buying a property that you have, if you're buying a home, you can use the affordability housing. So when I'm talking about the affordability housing schemes, obviously you've got the shared ownership, and then you've got other affordability schemes which you can also use. And I'll put a link in the chat so you can get more information about those. Now, the next scheme is the one in London. Next is the other one. So this one is called the London Living Rent Home Scheme. And this is basically for properties that are in London. Right, so how are you eligible? Now, the first one is you need to live or work in London. You need to either have a formal tenancy, this is for example with a private landlord, or you live and have an informal arrangement with family or friends as a result of struggling with living costs. They say the maximum household income is 60,000, and you cannot have owned another residential before. and you are unable to buy a home, including through shared ownership in your local area. So it really is for people that can't afford to buy a home on their own without this scheme, and that's why it's being offered. So once they've looked at that, they then look at target market, they look at the allocation, they look at who they're going to prioritise. So when you're looking at all of this, it really is important to sort of read all the information and see if it's a scheme for you. Now, from what I've seen of both of the schemes, the London one does seem to have a lot more restrictions. Like the one outside of London, the rent to buy, was literally just saying you need to be employed, part-time or full-time, that kind of thing, when the London living rent is saying, okay, household income has a maximum of 60. There's a lot more restrictions on it. So just be aware, you can always live out just on the outskirts of London, and then that way you can still take advantage of being close to London, but be on the more flexible scheme and look at things like that. But either way, you will need to apply for a mortgage. And either way, you will need to sort of look at that. It is different to the right to buy that obviously gives you that discount because you've been renting the property for years and years. So do look at the difference between the two. And as I said, if you've got any questions, please by all means put it in the chat and we can go from there. But that is a rough, that's an overview, I'd like to say, of both schemes. Thanks.